Good morning, everyone. That was my first time of ringing the bell, so I'm sorry it was so loud. I will be less next time. Okay. Okay. The Pledge of Allegiance. John, would you please lead us? Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Charlie, you have the song selection for today?
I do. And let me just mention that the reason we're using the house mic for this system is because it's being recorded, as you can see on the screen. So when we make announcements, any of you members make announcements, you'll have to use the mic, because if you don't, it'll be dead. The people watching will not hear anything. The song I picked is on page number 8, number 14. Since this is the 5th game of the West Series here, we're going to sing Take Me Out to the Ball Game. It hurts me to sing this because, being from Southern California, as is Jim Stewart, I would be a Dodger fan. But nevertheless, I'll let Tricia have this so she can cheer for the Giants. And in fact, I'm going to let you start it, Tricia, because your voice might be a little better than mine.
I'm not sure about that. Take me out to the ball game. Take me out to the crowd. Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jacks. I don't care if I never get back. Let me root for the home team. If they don't win, it's a shame. For it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game.
That's tonight, the game. Huh?
I was going to suggest Anchors Away after having seen quickly. Did anybody watch those 2 whistles?
Oh, they were amazing, yes.
Oh, yeah. Unbelievable. They flew right over the house.
And I believe you have thought for the day.
I do.
Here's the mic.
Yes, I do. And I don't know if any of you know this, but today is National Dessert Day. So in honor of that, I looked up special thoughts around desserts. And the first one I came up with is, may your day be as delightful as the chewy edge of a brownie.
Oh, wow.
And then, of course, there's always life is short, eat dessert first. And how about this one? A cupcake is a muffin that believed in miracles. And there's, as long as you know how to bake, life is sure to be sweet. And the very last one is, I don't know if any of you know this, but when you get stressed out, stressed is desserts spelled backwards. There you go.
I'm going to go over and write down the word dessert and then do it backwards and check that out.
Yes, yes. Well, we don't have any guests today, but we do have a guest speaker today, Vicki Whiting, and Tricia will formally introduce her later in the program. I've checked, we don't have any birthdays this week, but do we have any anniversaries? No? Okay. Charlie, do we have any correspondence this week? No correspondence. Well, our sunshine report, we have several things to report. As you know, we have one of our members that has come down with a very mild case of COVID, and I think everyone signed the get well card to be mailed to her. And I don't know if any of you remember Sandy Wald. She was a member of our club for some time. She has recently passed. And Pat sent out an email yesterday regarding Susan Chu's service. Not a funeral, but it's celebration of life. And Pat, could you please tell us when that will be?
So I think it's Saturday, the 23rd at 2 o'clock, and it's at St. Andrew's Church in Sonoma, which my phone will tell me where that is. Arnold Drive.
Thank you. And I'm sure that a number of us will be going to that service.
Somebody said something.
Yes, we will do that. We'll take care of it as a reminder closer to the date for sure. Our upcoming events, we do have a board meeting today after this regular meeting. And our Veterans Day here at service that we have celebration is going to be on November the 11th. And we need some volunteers to come at 9 o'clock in the morning to help set up. And the regular program will be at noon. And Charlie will be one of the speakers for that. He's going to be speaking on the history of Veterans Day. Tricia, do you have any SLP reports?
We can all be so proud of our SLPs. So I'm going to speak a little bit about our high school SLPs, the Key Clubs. So I've been this week in contact with both of the Key Clubs. Yesterday, I went to the first in-person meeting, actual meeting that I was able to attend for Montgomery, where they elected officers. And since they didn't have any past officers from previous years to conduct the meeting, it was a very unusual meeting because normally I sit in the back and only offer suggestions, but this meeting I actually had to run for them because they didn't have a president to run the elections, and they couldn't have the person who was most likely going to be the president run the meeting because that was kind of an unfair advantage. So they did their elections, and it was really sweet. They now have a president, a vice president, and one of the students who had come in for the first time said, "Well, can I run for secretary?" And we're like, "Yeah, sign that girl up." So she's secretary. So it was really great, and encouraging them to attend the Region Training Conference, which is this Friday from 6 to 9, and Fall Rally, which is next Saturday from 10:30 in the morning till 10:30 at night. Woo-hoo. So they've got all that going on, and it's good to see it finally coming back to normal. What we say is normal. They're really getting going, and they're getting excited and getting the idea, and there are no returning members. So it really is starting all over. And so then later in the day, I met up with a student from Maria Carrillo, and in order for her to hand over the $316.02 that they had raised at a bake sale for the pediatric trauma program, which is their pet project for attending Fall Rally, which is next Saturday. So I was able to turn that into Pat, and that's exciting because that's the first fundraising project of the year. So again, it's seeing them, these baby steps, getting back into it after COVID, and just seeing it all come together. So in addition to the clubs that we help, I've also been working, as I mentioned, with Piner, because we think Sebastopol is taking on their sponsorship, but they're just in that beginning process. And so they're wondering, what do they do next? What if they want people to go to a fall rally? So I'm working with their president and giving them all that information and trying to get them set up enough so that I can work with Cardinal Newman to get them at that step. So there's a lot on my plate right now with all of the key clubs.
Patricia, could you tell, Patricia, I'm sorry, could you tell us what SLP means for those?
Yeah, SLP is Student Leadership Programs. So we talk about our SLPs as all of the student groups that we help, all the way from the first graders that we work with, the bringing up grades programs, all the way to the high school key club programs. And college Key Club International. Yes. Yeah. Yesterday I found out about Circle K planning something on October 24th. It was the first I'd heard about it. I'm like, that's a week away. I'm not supposed to be hearing about it for the first time a week away.
Training. 3 days from now? Saturday?
Oh, no, I've been working on that for quite some time.
Now, where's that gonna be?
The training, the Region Training Conference is in Windsor at the Windsor United Methodist Church, which is directly across the street from Windsor Middle School. So one of the Kiwanis advisors has an inn at that church, and so we're able to use that, and they've got a nice setup like they do here with the audio visual. So it works really well for us. So Fall Rally is, yeah, thank you. Fall Rally is October 23rd. And of course, that's the same day as Susan Chu's Celebration of Life. I just heard, but that is a celebration of all of the pediatric trauma program fundraising that the Key Club, the high schoolers, have done. That's an annual program, except during COVID. And so it's been a while since they've done that. And our part of that is helping the students get there and serving as chaperones. Well, I just found out that they changed the chaperone requirements in a way that makes it much easier to have chaperones, but in a way that scares the daylights out of me. So now we only need one adult for every 50 students. 50.
Oh my God.
That's what I said. And so don't tell anyone, because I'm going to tell everyone in our region that it's 1 in 25, that for our region, as a realistic, that's like a school classroom. A school classroom. It's going to be 1 in 25 for Region 15, because I can't manage 50 students on my own, and I can't imagine finding another chaperone who's willing to be responsible for 50 students. Key Club International. So we're just going to say it's 1 in 25, but that means that chaperones are less of an issue. But get drivers in getting students to Six Flags is difficult, because the students are not supposed to drive themselves to Six Flags. They can have their parents drop them off and meet in a certain place. But generally, the Kiwanis carpool and take students over to Six Flags, spend the whole day, as Colin knows, looking for a bench, trying to find a bench that they can sleep on, and then drive back. And even though the park is open till 10:30, we tell the students we're leaving at 8:30, because that's just a long enough day for all of us. So we've, in past years, Hansel Toyota has donated vans, and that's made it easier to transport students. but they've told me that they have supply issues. And they don't know, they still don't know as of yesterday whether they will be able to donate the vans. So I still don't know how many more drivers I need, because that if you can only fit 3 or 4 students in a car, you need a lot more drivers than if you can fit 9 in a car. You know, that's 3 cars. So those of you who might be able to go as drivers, if you would keep that date open, I would appreciate it. And I'm hoping today to know about the Hansel Toyota. And of course, I feel a responsibility, not only as region advisor, not only for our key clubs, but I'm trying to make sure Pioneer has rides, because they're in this transition of being dropped by Redwood Empire and not having, you know, it's hard to tell Sebastopol, welcome, you signed on last week, now you need this many drivers.
Well,
So,
we're pretty good at coming together
yeah.
in a minute.
so I'm just trying to make sure everyone's taken care of. I'm the mother hen.
A couple of questions. So a driver could take a number of students and drop them off and come back and pick them up. Well, then you wouldn't have to stay all day then. Well, that's good. So you'll probably get more drivers if you know that. And having been there in the past, I found it was rather expensive, but I know my family had passes. How much is it for the students? Do they get a discount?
The students get a discount. It's $36 to get in. We tell the students that their total cost is $45, and that's to cover, that's because it's easily divisible by 3. So many key club activities are paid a third, a third, a third. A third by the student, a third by their club through fundraising, and a third by their sponsoring Kiwanis Club. So the idea with the $45 is it covers their entrance fee, part of the adults' entrance fee that's taking them, part of the parking, and part of the gas.
Very good. Thank you, Tricia. So we can go to Susan's service and take some of the students. So I'll be up.
But every day I get a different. So the question was, how many students in all? And the students don't yet know yet, because they're students. So that's part of the dilemma. And we're dealing with so many, you know, they don't know if they have a ride, they don't know, you know, so there's so many things coming together at once. I know there were about 5 from Montgomery that wanted to attend, 11 from Maria Carrillo who wanted to attend, 5 from Pioneer who wanted to attend, and those are the only ones that I have numbers from.
Thank you.
Yeah, so they raise $25,000 a year.
Wow, that's outstanding. These students, key clubbers that we have been in the past remarkable, helping with all types of events. And then we in turn give them scholarships they apply. So,
The other
excuse me.
thing is like the fall rallies. The fall rallies will normally raise anywhere from $50,000 to $70,000, $80,000 at one lump chunk money. Goes into the foundation. Basically, this gives us gives the children's fund, I got to call it the right word, children's fund capabilities of sending out the grant monies, as well as putting this money into the pediatric trauma program. So we always look for these folks, these kids to do this work for us because it does definitely help, as well as help pay for their scholarships that the foundation gives out. We'll give out about $150,000 in scholarship money. So it does not go to waste.
Thank you, Bob. Now, next week, we had talked about going down to Rohnert Park and for an interclub and carpooling. And I know Ann was going to get back to Penny Lee today about how many of us were planning on going. So can we have a show of hands on who is going to go? It's next Wednesday, the 20th at 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock is when the meeting starts. And we get an entree and we get a free piece of pie. I'm going. It's Wednesday, the 20th. Okay. Pat, will you be going? Okay. So Charlie, we can certainly carpool together. I'd be happy to drive. Tricia, you too. And Bob and Ann are going, right? All right. Well, then Ann will be able to report to Penny Lee today on how many we get to go. And I think it's wonderful that we support other clubs as they have been supporting us as well. Well, our speaker next week will be Bob Buggy, the COO of Course Company, who is the manager of the golf course here in Oakmont. And I thought that we would go ahead and see if we can't do our happy sad dollars before 9 o'clock when our speaker will be giving her presentation. So John, here we go.
So I have some happy dollars this Saturday. First of all, I get to go take my niece great niece who just turned 10 out to breakfast. Last Saturday, it was her older sister had just turned 13. And then after that, I drive to Petaluma and my grandchildren are going this pumpkin patch celebration that has a little bit of horseback riding and all sorts of stuff. So I've got a wild Saturday plan and I'm going to put it in 5 happy dollars for that.
Thank you, Pat. Oh, sorry. I'm just working my way along, standing right next to Mr. Isaac.
This is a sorry dollar for the 49ers.
Because they're sorry?
Boy, they are. It's incredible how you get a first round draft pick and run him every other play. You know, let's see if we can beat him up good, I guess. I did not understand any of it like Sunday. I mean,
Very frustrating. Very frustrating.
So this is a happy dollar for last weekend. We went to Sacramento and we attended a wedding of some good friends of ours, and it was fabulous outdoor wedding. And they own a winery and they have a little bed and breakfast place. So we stayed there and it's just a fabulous weekend. Then from there, we went and stayed a couple of nights with my sister and brother-in-law and saw my niece and her family and her two boys. So it was just all in all a great weekend. And if anyone hasn't seen it, I can show you pictures. I have a pumpkin patch in my front room. Thanks to our darling 6-year-old grandchild who we watch 3 days a week. And she let me know that you can't put pumpkins too close together because they'll meld together if you do that, Annie. So, you know, I'm learning all about pumpkins.
Well, I have a couple of happy dollars. Happy that you're here to talk about Kids Scoop News. I'm very interested and haven't heard of it, but I'm fairly new to what this club does. I belong to the Sebastopol Club and I'm an honorary member of this one. So it's a lot of fun to have all this interaction and different things that the different clubs do. We had a mixer last Friday at one of our members in Sebastopol. It turned out so well. The food was fabulous and the booze was flowing and the people were great. The ambiance and the conversation and getting new people in to talk about what Kiwanis does. And so that was really good. And then another kind of a sad dollar, my daughter's fur babies, which are my grand fur babies, got really sick yesterday, or no, yeah, Tuesday or yesterday, I can't remember which day now, but they were throwing up and couldn't figure out what was going on. She had taken them for a walk on the property. They live on top of Calistoga Mountain. So he thought maybe one of those sticker things got up one of their noses or something, but it was both dogs. So called every emergency vet in Santa Rosa. Nobody had anything available. Everything was swamped. There were absolutely no openings. One place said you could wait 4 hours in our parking lot. Another one says you can wait until we call you, but we have no idea when that might be. So they took off to San Rafael. There's a big vet down there. I guess it's an emergency hospital, 2 stories high. No parking in their lot either. They had to park next door at Harbor Freight and walk over. And as they were walking over, one of the vets had come out of their hospital and said they had kennel cough. So she actually didn't have to pay an emergency visit, which is really good for 2 dogs, would have been very costly. But as the day has gone by and the next day has come, we're not too sure it's kennel cough. Think they just ate something that didn't agree and they just didn't see them eat anything. Anyway, so hope it's not kennel cough, because at 6 weeks I won't get to see my fur babies. And that's terrible. That's just like not seeing your loved one. Anyway, so that's mine.
You have to be careful. I know walking your dogs in this time of year with the foxtails around, because they can get into their noses and they get in their ears. It's terrible.
Yeah, that's what we thought it was.
Yeah.
Well, I have a couple happy dollars. One is the Region Training Conference tomorrow, Halloween themed. I ordered a Halloween costume. It'll arrive on Saturday. That's right, you heard correctly. It arrives Saturday. The event is Friday. This will be our first live in-person Key Club event since March of 2020 with the division. So I'm really excited to get all the Key Clubbers together.
What is the costume?
The costume is an Egyptian costume with a long cape and a fake snake and a hat. And so that's what it is, very gold. So the second is I got new windows in my house in Louisiana, and they look really nice. So I'm glad that's done. And let's see if I can remember the third. No. Oh, the third. The third is I did something new and very interesting last weekend. I did a drop-in pickleball clinic, and I am a new pickleball addict. Pickleball is like a playoff of tennis, but with a little.
It's a little bit of a controversy.
Yeah, it is. It's a more like a wood or a composite racket. So it's half size court. It's like on a badminton size court. But anyway, it was a lot of fun. And I found parts of my body I did not know existed. Oh my gosh, it was the best exercise. So.
Is there still a controversy here anymore?
Very popular. My first dollar is a sad dollar. for the death of Sandy Wald, our former member. She was very active when we were meeting over at East Trek in the past. And my second dollar is a happy dollar because I'm glad Colin was able to set up this recording of the meeting today, and hope he's ready to do our program soon. Oh, good. Oh, good, good. Can't see him. Thank you.
Well, I have a couple of happy dollars for being here today and having this new opportunity for people to see what we do in our clubs. And I have a sad dollar for Sandy as well.
Well, I have two happy dollars. Too loud. Okay. Because this weekend I get to go to Walnut Creek for a 2-day swim meet and participate. And so I signed up for 2 races on Saturday and 2 races on Sunday. And it's been over 2 years since I've been in a competition. So it should be fun, and whatever you do, you do. You know, the computer does all of the touching, and this, there goes the numbers, and it sorts them out. So you know right away, you know, well, how did I do compared to other people in my age group? So here's my 2 happy dollars, and it should be a lot of fun.
Thank you. So I guess next is Colin. Excuse me. Sorry.
Tricia, would you please introduce our guest today?
As I do that, since I'm talking loud enough, we're going to move our chairs so that we can see the screen well enough. And I would like to introduce Vicki Whiting. Vicki is no stranger to most of us. She is I'm going to call her the executive director, the woman that matters at Kids Scoop News, which is a publication given to students in not just local schools, but they've really expanded to all around California. And the last time she was here, we spent all of our time doing the kids' activities in the Kids Scoop News. But what I'm most anxious to hear about is how they worked and how they transitioned during the COVID years to continue to provide this amazing experience to educators and students during a time when resources were so very much needed. So with that introduction, Vicki, I turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. And yeah, exactly. That's been quite a year. Am I loud enough here?
You're perfect.
Okay.
Now I can fix this here for you. Excellent. Yes. Perfect, perfect. If you could just jump into Zoom. Okay, maybe I'll just hand this to you then. There
Great. You guys can hear me okay? So yeah, I was remembering too, last time I actually went back to my teacher mode and we did activities with Kids Scoop News. So those of you who were here last year got a really good introduction to the content and how teachers teach with it and the fun we have. And then of course, shortly after that, COVID hit and the world changed. So we were definitely impacted because our operation model is to, can I turn the audio off on my? Yeah, I keep getting an echo over there. So, you know, our model was to deliver Kids Scoop News to the schools, to the teachers, and then, no, I got it. Then the teachers put it into the hands of children who then took it home. So we were working with classroom and home and model with the children. And now kids couldn't go to school. In fact, they didn't even want kids that originally coming by school to pick up anything like that. So I'm going to go into that in a little more detail later on. But I got to thinking about, you know, because I've been here before and you guys already know a fair bit about what we do here locally. And it was interesting, you asked Trish what's going on in the bigger picture. So I'm sharing with you actually what was our annual report we did in June last year, which covers our response to COVID, but we'll pull the curtain back a little deeper into our organization, which does work beyond Sonoma Valley and even beyond California. So why are we here? What is the purpose of Kids Scoop News? We are here to address the fact that our country and locally, we are facing a very serious literacy crisis. Nationally, more than 60% of our children are not reading at grade level. Sonoma Valley, fewer than 30% of some children are reading at grade level. On average, economically disadvantaged children, when they go home, there's 2 or fewer books in their home. And we asked the teachers in our teacher survey this same question, and we're finding those statistics are here as well. Throughout COVID and distance learning, children who had no reading resources at home suddenly had no access to a classroom where a teacher had books, no access to a school library, no access to a community library, virtually no access to anything fun to read in the home. And throughout COVID, especially last school year, they found that fewer than 30% of elementary age children were successfully participating in distance learning. So we have, you've probably been hearing conversations of learning loss and other issues that are facing so many, especially economically disadvantaged children, really fell far behind this past year. So in previous years, I came here and talked to you about the achievement gap between the kids who have access to resources and supportive families and those who don't, and that access has grown exponentially. So the issue that came to us in terms of our operation model was our traditional operation model no longer could work, but the need for what we were doing expanded greatly. So in terms of literacy, one way there is some hope, and what we had to continue to address is giving children access to exciting, motivating, educational reading materials at home does cause children to read more and for longer lengths of time. Those are 2 factors that will improve reading at school. Most teachers can tell you the kids that come from homes with access to reading materials and do fun reading things at home will do better at school. And so our model, as I talked about, is that we do provide low-income children with access by providing this once a month, traditionally through the schools, a little differently this last year. And we tell people it's like giving children a book a month for about $2 a month. So we can't solve all the problems. I would love to put a full library in all these kids' homes, but we can begin to make a difference and build that enthusiasm as well as spent time reading. So we survey our teachers, and this past year we began surveying some parents in our pilot parent program, and that they all agree that Kidscoop News causes children to read more and for longer periods of time, which are elements of reading achievement. So this was one of many great quotes we get. My second graders are extremely motivated to read when they receive their issue of Kidscoop News. As an educator, I enjoy how all the articles are informational and nonfiction. Thank you, Kidscoop News. And that's another key distinction about Kidscoop News is we are a nonfiction informational reading publication. And on the testing, that's an area where students do even worse traditionally than on fiction reading, because schools tend to do a lot of focus on fiction. So what was our year like? We did launch a parent training. One of the things we saw was it was great to get Kidscoop into the hands of children. They were reading it at school, they were taking it home. But what I wanted to know, do the parents know about this? Especially Spanish-speaking parents and parents who may not know how to make reading fun. So we spent 2 years ago, we did some focus groups with parents, and we talked to them about all this, the importance of reading at home and reading outside of school and reading for fun. And I'll never forget the mom who asked me, well, I tell my son to read, sit down and read for 20 minutes. I think maybe in a more traditional Hispanic and country where there's a little more respect for authority, that might be a pull off. But in this country, that they were like, I'm trying, So we realized that parents needed a couple of things. They needed training and help to how to engage their children in reading. And they also needed encouragement and resources that would help them. So we piloted last year during COVID, but we still managed to get some good things going. So what we did was, I don't think you guys saw this last year. Inside of every Kidscoop now, there is a 5-page supplement that's a parent guide. It's in English and Spanish. One of the things the parents said, those especially who didn't read English very well, said if you could give me a couple of pages in Spanish that are also in English, then I can read that, and then I have an ability to discuss that page with my child. And then we also give little fun activities and games for every Kidscoop page. So we also then started conducting training programs. So before COVID, we got this out, we piloted it with some parents, and then we did a survey, which was extremely well received. Once the schools shut down and we could no longer do trainings in person, we did Zoom, Facebook Live. We now have a bilingual parent engagement coordinator, and she has 2 delightful bilingual teenager children. And they would take, like if we had an experiment or a recipe or something in Kidscoop, and they demonstrate it on Facebook Live. And the Family Resource Center out of El Verano School said we had some of the highest participation videos on Facebook Live. So she was doing all kinds of things to reach out to parents. And how did we get the papers to the kids? So I'll jump in now on that. First month, so we shut down in March. We had printed the March issue at the end of February, so it had actually gone into the classrooms. So as soon as the shutdown hit, I started emailing teachers and I said, could you use, do you want a digital edition? And 70% of them said yes, that would be great. In fact, one teacher said the nicest thing, because we set up a digital edition for the teachers to use in their Zoom and Google Classrooms. And one teacher said, I'm so grateful for this because everything's different for the kids. All the teaching materials, everything changed. She says, bringing And using Kids Scoop News was like having an old friend. It was something familiar that the kids could relate to even in the Zoom classroom. So that was a great beginning. But then we find out the teachers are telling us, you know, I'm only getting 10, 20, 30% of my kids even showing up. And how can we get this into the hands of kids? So we started working with food distribution programs, as they did pretty quickly get set up, so especially the kids who depend on their free lunch programs, free breakfast programs. And then, of course, as you know, a lot of community organizations started getting food out to people. So we started distributing through food programs, mask programs. You know, people would drive by, and Sonia in particular was out there handy. If there were kids in the car, she'd hand them Kids Scoop News. And we continued to get a lot of distribution out. And then actually it was kind of good because we had the parents right there in the car, and she could explain that there was a parents guide in there. So wherever we thought there would be parents, there was a mass distribution if there's anything. And of course they were at La Luz and other locations, the library, even once the library started doing handing, you could go up to the door. She wanted papers, and if the kids came up, they put a Kids Scoop News in the bag for the kids. So we were out there everywhere possible we could go. And then by May, I remember one teacher said to me, she called this the Digital Circus. She was so frustrated and expressed the frustrations of so many teachers and their, you know, ongoing challenges to teach on a digital basis, to try to find kids and to keep kids engaged digitally. I remember I have one friend who had a little guy, was in kindergarten last year, and she was trying to work from home. He was on the computer trying to do his schoolwork, and all she could hear was the teacher going, "Weston, come back. Weston, where'd you go, Weston?" Next thing you know, she's getting a text from the teacher, "Tell Weston to go back in front of the computer." And she'd try, and she's trying to do her work, and she's trying to get him on the computer. And then the phone would ring. It would be the school administration, I was secretaries. "You need to get Weston back on the phone." She was just, it really was a digital circus out there for so many kids and so many families, especially if you had a young kid who really wasn't yet ready to sit for long periods of time in front of a computer. So fortunately, she was able to get her son into a kind of a pod program through Boys and Girls Club, but those weren't available for everybody. So the teacher saying, "Is there any way you can get this in print? How can we get back in print?" So then we did a May-June edition, and we've kept the digital. We still have the digital today. We did a May-June edition in print, and again, got that out through the food services. And by that time, the schools were having kids come by and pick up packages of books and worksheets and things like that. And so they handed them out. And we ended up having principals calling us and ordering one for every student in the school system. In Oakland Unified School District, 4,000 copies a month. San Leandro Unified, every student, there's like 2,500, 2,800. So our orders actually almost doubled last year. Fortunately, we got some grants, Sonoma Community Foundation and a private donor to help us with some of this additional demand. So we did in December, before everything went crazy, we had started piloting our parent program, and we did our first parent survey, which was intended to be kind of like the baseline beginnings. And it'll be interesting when we do our survey again this year with all the changes that have happened over the past year. But we did find that they were getting Kids Scoop News, 35% at school, 65% started getting them through food distribution, because that was our main distribution for a while. They found the parent guide helpful, and it was overall, I won't reach all the data, but it was very well received. And my child loved reading Kids Scoop News from school. My child feels a sense of pride and ownership of having her very own newspaper to call her own. She feels grown up and enjoys reading about things she cares about. Kidscoop News really finds interesting topics and makes the stories engaging for kids to read. This is invaluable for building reading skills. And I love the ones in Spanish. So we developed the digital edition, as I explained. We actually had 5 meetings with teachers who were sharing ideas with each other on how they were using Kidscoop News digitally. I learned a lot. We also partnered with an organization called commonsense.org, and which provides teachers and families with learning resources online. And you have to be vetted to get on their platform, and we were accepted by them for that. This is the quote from one teacher about the digital edition. Having the digital version and accompanying scavenger hunt available to use while we were not in the classroom was great. I was able to link them to Google Classroom so that all my kids had the ability to access. More than one of my students who completed the scavenger hunt left positive comments about it in our Google Classroom page. I hope the digital version will continue for however long we're going to be doing distance learning. Again, typical feedback. We also had to increase our social media outreach as we couldn't reach parents through parent meetings and traditional things. We launched a monthly reading raffle, which we're still doing, where children can fill out a form and get a chance to win. Right now, we're giving out Kindle Fires. We've had books to give away. We're doing ongoing parent training through Facebook Live and Zoom. And now actually, because things are opening up, in October, we were doing monthly art and literacy workshops for kids, where we would use art projects in Kidscoop News and reading Kidscoop News. We did a reading workshop series this summer at La Luz. And this kind of summed it up. Juan Hernandez, who has left La Luz now, but was the executive director for many years. And actually, I've met the new executive director, Leonardo, and he feels very similarly to this. It says, too many of our Latinx families don't have reading materials in their home. Like many parents, they need ideas on how to encourage their children to enjoy and spend more time reading. And the parents need that in Spanish. Kidscoop News has filled an essential need in our valley. So where else are we going? We've been doing a lot in the San Francisco Bay Area, primarily North Bay and East Bay, and working to keep up with that. We brought in a couple of years ago a very, very, very part-time development person who is now about 3/4 time and will be going full-time next year. And he has been changing our lives and our organization. We are starting to expand greatly. We did start in Humboldt County this year with a partnership with Humboldt County Office of Education and a major donor from the Humboldt area. We've also started programs in Napa County this year. And we have launched, the big thing is what we call a Kidscoop News Publishing Partnership. We do not want to become like the Red Cross or something where we have a big organization and lots of chapters or whatever. So we are looking for and are piloting right now a program with organizations who want to do a Kidscoop News program in their area. So they license content from us, we train them, but they actually implement the program locally. We've got that in Nebraska and in Louisiana right now. So because of these partnerships in Nebraska, they are now sending out about 20,000 copies, working with about 20,000 children in northeastern Nebraska. They've already got a couple of major donors. Our partner there is the Nebraska Press Association Foundation. These are all being set up as nonprofit. They have to be nonprofit. They have to follow our vision and mission. They have to abide to our branding and informational, because I don't want what we're doing here to be changed in any way. And, it's got to continue to be the same around the country. And we have a partner in Louisiana who publishes the parenting magazine there. And he has set up a literacy nonprofit to promote this throughout Louisiana. A lot of this is coming out of a 3-year strategic plan, and which is part of what Michael, our new development person, has brought in, with the goal to growing nationally and ultimately globally. So we're having a lot of fun. We're growing like crazy, despite COVID. So I'm really curious what we're going to do when this wraps up. So I like to say, this is out of my presentation to my board and some of our supporters like you. I call Kid Scoop News, it's got to have a literary context. How many of you remember the little engine that could? We're the little nonprofit that can. So last year, we had 100% growth in revenue. Partnerships and outreach initiated that will make us even bigger, probably bigger than 100% growth in 21-22. 68% increase in students served, 200% increase in parent training and engagement. We launched a model for scaling and had started 2 pilot projects in Nebraska and in Louisiana. So we've been busy. We're getting ready to do an even bigger growth this next year. Basically, last year we went wider, we increased the number of students served, we went deeper, we're establishing a reproducible parent engagement program, and we went further by building and launching a sustainable growth model. Looking ahead for this school year, we want to deepen our impact with the Latinx community to improve reading at grade level. We'll continue growth here in the Bay Area and California, expand our national footprint with these regional partnerships, and start continuing to build our organizational capacity in leadership so that we can manage and be successful in this growth. So that's what you help contribute to. Thank you so much for your enthusiasm for what we do, your trust in us, and for putting out the word to help us not only go deeper here in Sonoma Valley, but as we expand. And I brought copies of the paper for whoever wants it, and our scavenger hunt that we did last year, the scavenger. So if anybody wants to do that again, you can.
So Vicki, in appreciation of your presentation to our club today, we will present a book in your name to Luther Burbank Elementary School Library, where we sponsor Kids Scoop News for the 3rd grade class. Thank you. Thank you.
So I have sort of a question and sort of mostly a comment. I'm going to admit that I was an early I'm a convert. Early when I joined this club, I couldn't imagine how these kids would take to newspapers. It's such an old thing. Their grandparents read newspapers. Why would the kids be? I mean, that was such a thing of the past. Everything was going to digital. Everything was going to online. And I just couldn't see how the kids would take to that. And I am just 500% in the other direction now. When I see the content, when I see how much the kids can get from that, when I put myself in the place of my own grandson and what he can get out of reading it, that it's interesting, that it's something that will engage him, that it's something he can touch, that he can do a page and then he can set it aside, that it belongs to him. We had a member who was a really big advocate of Kids Scoop News. And for a number of years, I just kind of bit my lip and thought, yeah, well, he's a big advocate, so I'm just going to shut up and it's something we do. And now I'm going to be that advocate because, we can't just rely on digital forever. And we've seen that for COVID, and I don't think we're ever going back to everything being digital and people just relying on digital. Kids need something to hold and to work through. And I think this is phenomenal, and how you've taken it and expanded it. I love that you've taken it to Louisiana. I have a connection to Louisiana, and so I happen to know how bad their school system is. They consider an underperforming school that isn't less than 80% below reading level a success. And so there's a lot of growth. And so I'm thrilled to see that that's where my grandson is. So I'm thrilled to see that, there'll be that opportunity in Louisiana. I've been sending it to him digitally. So for everyone else who's ever been a skeptic, this is, I'm an advocate. This is a great thing for students. And thank you so much, Vicki, for sticking with this through a really tough time.
Yeah, we were, I think what kept us going through this last year was the ongoing demand. I tell you, if one more person told me how many closets they cleaned out, I was going to wring their neck. I was like, we were working harder, longer hours, and fortunately we could work remotely. But I'm glad we could be there and provide what we could. But the need was so much even bigger than us. We know by scientific research, reading online and reading in print actually activate differently in your brain. So they need both. I'm not going to criticize and say, get rid of digital. There is a place for it. There's some wonderful things, but it doesn't develop the reading brain in the same way as reading in print does, actually. And also we lost so many kids. Distance learning did not work. I told you that one story from one friend who has an affluent, well-supported child at home, and how challenging it was for her. Imagine if she had one child at home. Imagine 3 children at home, and nobody there to supervise them. We just lost a lot of kids, unfortunately. Is it time for me to pull a ticket?
Yes, please.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure everyone else here already knows the answer to this, but like I see that child sitting there in front of a newspaper now. Is every child of every age reading that actual newspaper, or do you have?
Great question. I have copies over here, so take a look at it. I was a teacher for many years. I taught 3rd grade primarily. In my 3rd grade class, I had kids who could barely read, kids who were reading 8th grade level chapter books. So I'm not personally a believer in graded materials for the kind of things I do, because it's I don't like categorizing kids that way. So you look through KidScoop News, you will find a variety of activities that appeal to different groups. I had a friend who was using it in preschool, and I even had to ask, what are you doing with preschool students? She goes, Vicki, I'm just telling them reading can be fun. They're learning to flip the pages properly. I sat down with one child and he was doing one of the activities, and I said, what are you doing? Had nothing to do with what the directions were. He made up his own activity, but he was having fun. He thought reading was fun. He was developing a good relationship with print. And here was this little group of preschoolers, and they were all fully engaged. Couldn't read a word, but they were having a great time. So most of I write it for 2nd through 6th grade in terms of vocabulary and curriculum topics and things like that. But like I said, we'll have a wide range. And then they all feel equal to each other. We're all reading the same thing. I'm not reading the little kid book and you're reading the big kid book. She's asking me about hands-on. We would love, we're starting to expand our outreach again. So for example, we were at Vintage Festival last weekend. So we haven't really developed this yet, but we're hoping to do some outreach to get volunteers to come help us out in the community, to tell parents about this, to have activities for kids. If you're working with a classroom that's using, volunteer to come in and read it with the kids. I think you'd enjoy watching them with it, or let them read it to you. I'm a big believer in community members reading with kids. So there's an incredible program in South Carolina called Freedom Readers, where she develops, she calls them tutors and scholars after school program. And I'm reading her book right now, and I thought I would love to expand what we do by partnering with an organization like that combines not only good materials, but also a volunteer network to have one-on-one relationships with kids. Really important. Okay. It's at the Sonoma Valley Library. It's at every Exchange Bank branch. Exchange Bank is one of our sponsors, so go in and ask them. Those would probably be the easiest ways, or you can come by our office in Sonoma Valley. We're in town as Sonoma. We're in the town of Sonoma. Yeah, that's where our office is. We always have them there too. Okay, on bated breath, your number here. Oh, you need to go get your numbers?
The last three numbers. Sure.
Yeah.
Go ahead and read it and then they'll look.
Okay, this one is 975. 975. Oh, good.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.